What's up, everyone? Welcome to today's daily market recap. So in today's episode, I'm going to break down all of my trades from the morning. And I suppose all good things have to end. Today, you know what? Could someone get this out of my face? I don't want to see the color red. I started today with a terrible loss. I'm allergic to that. I can't be near that. I can't be near anything red. The color, it's the color that makes me sick. This, I can't be near this. This is red. Get it out of here. Get it away from me. It's disgusting. Okay, maybe I'm a little on edge. Started today with a pretty difficult trade. Pretty big loss. Well, all right, let's jump onto the screen share and start breaking it down. So we're going to pull up the ticker BMGL. I am red on this. $24,009.30. What happened? Now, you may know my max loss is right around 25,000. I have my max loss set at approximately my daily average. So, however much I've been making on average over the last 30 days is my max loss. So in other words, I don't want to lose more in one day than I can make in one good day. I think that makes sense. So, when we look at my P&L from the last 30 days, you'll see that I'm actually a little bit above 25,000. I'm actually at about, 33,000 for this year. For the last 30 days, I guess I'm actually at, 67,000. So, but I don't want to lose $67,000 in one day. So mentally, my max loss today was about 25 grand. So I lost 24,000 on my first trade. So what happened? Well, it actually wasn't my first trade, but let's get into it. So I sat down this morning at about 6:30 and I saw BMGL was squeezing up the scanner. As you can see right here, it was our leading gainer in the entire market. It was looking pretty good. And so as we came to the top of the hour, 7 a.m., I was excited to break the ice and get a couple trades on it. So, in fact, my first trade today was at 6.53. So I broke the ice on BMGL at $3.70. So where was that? Let's see. So we're going to zoom forward a little bit to 6.53. It was right inside this candle here. So the stock had sold off a little bit. It started to curl back up. And so right inside this candle, I took my starter at 370 and it ended up squeezing up to $4. I added at 4. However, it was not able to break 4. You see how it had this sort of, it hit 406, but wasn't able to hold 4. As it dipped down, I got out and I made only about $2,000 on that first trade. So that was sort of my icebreaker. And then right here, I got back in and I took profit as it popped up to this high right here. And I was actually up about $8,000. But I was watching 7 a.m. because what I expected was that this being the leading gainer at 7 a.m. would get a surge of volume as traders, many of which are not able to start trading until 7, would jump in it. It's the leading gainer. It's the most obvious stock. And so what I ended up doing is I had a cushion. I was up $8,000 on the day. And I was watching it right in here to buy this dip. But I was sort of wanting to wait until 7 a.m. to the top of the hour. And so what I ended up doing is right at 7 a.m., I pressed the buy button. I entered my order for 15,000 shares. So I was like, all right, I'm going to be aggressive here. I'm looking for the squeeze through this high right here, which was 480, and I was looking for the break of 5, and I was looking for an immediate squeeze up to 550, maybe 6. That's what I was thinking in my mind. So I punched it. I pressed the buy button 4 times. 15, 30, 45, 60,000 shares. That's a huge position. Even for me. I mean, it's a big position. I'm sure there's people that take bigger positions, but that was a big position for me. And I ended up getting filled at about 460. For a second, it hits a high of 485, and then it flushes right here down to a low of 391. And as soon as it broke below 450, I was like, uh-oh, I got to get out of this thing. The problem was it was dropping so fast. By the time I was out, I went from up $8,000 to down 24,000. That's a $32,000 swing. And so that right there was my start to the day. A $32,000 loss is not insignificant. Now, I suppose, perspective, I actually had a $35,000 loss yesterday. So if you watch my recap yesterday, I started the day building my cushion, getting green, and at a certain point, I made my way to being up $235,000 on the day. And I was up 70,000 on this one stock. And then it dropped and I lost 35,000. So I went from 235 on the day to 200. Now, I didn't feel so bad because I was still up 200,000 on the day. It was a slightly bigger loss than what I had today. But today, because this was my first trade, this is my sort of first little series of trades, it put me down right up to my max loss, which I had set at 25,000. Now, this is my P&L for today. So you can't feel too sorry for me because I recovered. And I'm sitting in the green, $33,464.96. Today was a lesson on recovery. So I slowly chipped away at that loss until I finally flipped from red on the day to green. And it was thanks to EVOK. Really, that was the stock that really made the biggest difference. But it was a very slow battle, and I didn't finally cross to being green until close to 9 a.m. So those first trades on EVOK were at about 6:53 and 7 a.m. right here. All right, so that's not a good way to start the day. Now, my problem here on this was that this was still the leading gainer. It was still the most obvious stock. And so I struggled with feeling like, well, what do I do now? And I suppose we have to acknowledge that, of course, easy come, easy go. Trading is risky. Just as easily as I can make 35, 40,000, I can lose it. And you certainly have seen that in my trading. I've had big green days, but big red days as well. And on the other hand, or at the same time, there is no strategy that's right 100% of the time. So why didn't BMGL work? Was that a flaw in my strategy? I wouldn't really say so. This wasn't really that different from any of the other trades I've taken in the last several weeks, but this is just the percentage of the time when it doesn't work. And in this case, it didn't work in a fairly dramatic way. And I was very confident that it would work, which is why I had such a big position. So it surprised me. But my accuracy is about 72%. And that's, we can pull it up here. So where'd that go? I had my, I guess I closed the window. It doesn't matter. But anyways, if you look at my trader view metrics, you'll see it's about 72%. So, 28% of the time I'm wrong. And this is one of those times. And it was a big loss, unfortunately. And so that was my first trade of the day, first series of trades. So now all of a sudden my back is kind of up against the ropes. And I'm thinking, okay, what do we do next? So the first thing I did is take a deep breath. And I said, all right, let's just take a moment, give it a second. Let's see what happens. Now, BMGL did not recover. It just kind of kept going lower. But the second leading gapper was SCAG. This is a somewhat recent IPO. It's a Chinese company. And it was up also about 130% on the day. So on this one, when I first looked at the scanners at about 6 a.m., I was thinking, oh boy, big move here, dipping down. This could work here for a break back up to the high. But I ended up taking my first trade on it down here. Now, you might say, why in the world would you do that? It's a trade below VWAP. And you're right, it is. Oops, let me go back to the full screen. So I'll tell you why I did it. Our leading gapper was failing, but this was the second leading gapper. And it was going sideways right down here at about 10:29. And then it pulled back a little bit more and it was going sideways right here. And so this is at about 10 past 7. And so what I noticed here was that it seemed like it was basing out. I noticed that we had descending resistance, but that gave us room up to right about here, as you can see. And so what I decided to do on this, I looked at the 5-minute chart I recognized that we had a couple of little bottoming tails. So where was this? It was right here. We had a couple of bottoming tails. And I said, I'm going to take a starter on this of 2,500 shares. So I took a starter 2,500 shares at about 920 with a stop at just under 9. So risking about $500. It ends up popping up to 945 and I doubled to 5,000 shares. It breaks 945. I add another 2,500 shares and it goes up to a high of about 1050. And so I sold that for a decent little profit. Was it anything, to write home about? No, but it certainly was a step in the right direction. $6,178. So it ends up pulling back again, kind of going sideways, coming back up again a little later. And, it never really turns around. It had potential to if it had gotten above VWAP, but it couldn't. But in any case, broke the ice on that stock, got green, and was ready to take more trades on it, but it didn't really pull away anymore. Then the next stock I traded was BCTX. BCTX hit the scanner, and I jumped in it fairly quickly. It pulled back right here. So popped up, dipped down, bought the dip right here, pops back up right there, got in, got out, made $167 on it. So broke the ice, but didn't get any real significant profit. So it was in and out of that pretty quickly. And then we had PROK. Now, PROK was a big mover yesterday. I missed it yesterday because most of the move was during regular trading hours, but it was a big mover, which was good to see. And so today, as you could see, it started to squeeze and made a pretty big move. However, I sort of knew it would be a little choppy, and it was. I did not find it to be particularly easy to trade, but I finally broke the ice on it at about $5.70, which was on this pullback right there. So I bought that pullback, and we got to squeeze up to about 650. We dipped down, we got to push up to 670. I was up about $4,000 on it, and then I gave back about half of that profit. So, again, making some progress, moving in the right direction, more or less. But did not trade it after the open. Was like, nope, I'm going to leave that alone. So this is now 745. So I'm still down about $15,000, $16,000, but at least making some progress. And then we got KZIA. So KZIA pops up, and on this stock, I initially wasn't really sure about it, but there was news. It had a headline, popped up. It pulled back right here, and we got a really nice first candle to make a new high squeeze from about 1150 all the way up to a high of 15. And so on that one, I made 10,000. Now, that's not home run stuff, but it's a good base hit. And so now I'm down about 5,000 on the day. So I'm like, all right, it's 8 a.m., 8:05. So I'm like, again, moving in the right direction. This is good. And hopefully I can do a little bit better, but just kind of working with what I've got. And at that point, I'm sort of thinking, this is probably going to be a red day for me. But a $5,000 red day, or a $2,000-$3,000 red day is not so bad. So the next stock I end up trading is SBET, and I lose $62 on it. SBET squeezes up on the scanner. I jumped in with 2,500 shares, and I got in and out pretty quickly. I got in, it was right here on the break of 1950, and I got in and out for a $62 loss. So that didn't really work so well. That was at about 8:30. And then all of a sudden, 8:42, EVOK. So EVOK pops up on my scanners, and you could see it initially popped up here at 8:16. And I saw it there pop up, and I didn't trade it because I thought I don't know about it. Popped up again here, and I pulled it up, and I said, you know what? There's two problems with this stock. Number one, it's easy to borrow. When stocks are easy to borrow initially, because you don't have to pay any locating fees to your broker, more people are going to short it. It's easy to borrow. So I sort of expected it would have resistance. And I was kind of surprised that a 1 million share float stock would be easy to borrow, but it is. And then now easy or hard to borrow is broker specific. So for my broker, it was easy to borrow. For your broker, it may have been hard to borrow, but I've been using my broker for so long that usually when a stock is easy to borrow with my broker, I can tell it's going to be a little bit trickier. So anyway, it first hits my scanner. I pulled it up. saw it was easy to borrow, and I observed the 200 moving average was right here at about $4.25. So I thought, this is probably not going to work. However, it starts squeezing. And so right here, it starts squeezing, and I decided to punch it. I said, you know what? I'm going to punch it. And I bought 2,800 shares, which was a partial fill on a 5,000 share order for the break of $4 right here at 396. It ends up going up to 4, hits 426. And I said, let's just see if it can break through 450. If it can break through 425, which is the 200 moving average. And it did. And so when it broke that level and it went up to 450, I said, if it can hold 450, holding the 200 and now holding over the $0.50, I'm game. It did. And so I added right here at 465, 458, 465, 475, 480, and I was looking for the squeeze through 5. Now we ended up hitting a high right here of about 524. And on this trade, I went from red on the day to green. So I went from down 5,000 on the day to up about 5,000 on the day, which is pretty good. It then pulls back. I buy the dip right here. We get a squeeze up towards 6. And now I'm up about 17,000 on the day. It pulls back again. We get another squeeze higher up to 650. It goes a little higher here up to about 679. And that starts to dip down. Now, I ended up trading this sort of whole move. But I can tell you, I stopped trading at the open. So I stopped right here. So I traded this whole move. But I could tell you that this first part for me was the cleanest. And in this range, I made 30,000, and then I gave back 3,000 off the top as it dipped back down and was up 27,000. As it rallies back up here, I got back in and made 6,000 as it squeezed up to 9 and got myself to 33 on the day. But that was the most I could do. It was easy to borrow, but at a certain point, those early short sellers started to get squeezed out as it pulled away. So I did the best I could on it, but I really had my back up against the wall from the very beginning of the day. So I was not trading from a position of confidence. I was trading more from a position of, let's see how much I can reduce this bad day without making it worse, right? Because I don't want to turn a bad day into an awful day. And I thought, I'm down 25,000. I'm here on my laptop in Spain. And, as disappointing as that is, I had such a great day yesterday, 219,000, that let's not dig in too much to those gains from yesterday. I don't want to lose 50 grand here. If it's not hot, just stop. But my approach was basically, I stayed calm. Now, there's a couple things that helped me with that. So number one, even though it's currently past 4 in the afternoon, when I started trading at 1 p.m., I had not had any caffeine. So I wasn't feeling amped up. I wasn't all sort of jacked up on a bunch of espresso. As difficult as that is, I didn't want to have caffeine before trading. That's my rule. And it's my rule at home, which is easy since I start so early for me. It's more difficult here, but it's a rule that I keep. So no caffeine. I had gone for a nice walk this morning. I wasn't feeling agitated. I was feeling pretty calm. So when I took that first loss, it was fairly easy for me to say, look, you had a $35,000 loss yesterday, a $25,000 loss here this morning, or whatever, $32,000 swing. I mean, it's so early in the day. There's a really good chance we're going to still have some good opportunities. Yes, it's disappointing to start with this loss, but there was a chance that I was going to have this size loss at some point during the day. So it just so happens today it's the beginning. But let's just stay focused. Let's not get bent out of shape over it. So really, I tried to tell myself, don't get too fixated on it. Just keep trading. Good quality setups. But as always, I'm looking at breaking the ice, getting in, getting green. And if I can get green, then, that's my cushion and I start to scale up. But what ended up happening is I had a series of sort of small trades, as you can see. So these 2, 4, 5 stocks I traded were all relatively small trades that recovered a total of $10,000, $16,000, $18,000. So still read $6,000 after these trades. And I felt a little bit like, man, I'm down $24,000 on one stock. And now I've traded 5 others and I'm I've only made 18,000 on them. Like, this is really a struggle. I'm not finding big winners today. But I knew it only takes one. And then finally, EVOK was the one. But it was also possible that that didn't happen today, and I would have had to just accept that today's going to be a red day, a smaller red day, hopefully. Being down 5,000-10,000 is relatively small compared to my green days, so that would have been tolerable. But I'm fortunate that we've had enough opportunity in the market every day that as long as I was able to maintain composure and be patient, recovery was possible. So, as I sit here right now, sort of for the first time, I'm thinking about where I sit on the month. I wasn't really thinking about it any time during the day because I was so focused on just trying to cut the loss down and whatever. But now, if we look at the month of July, so this month, let's see, we'll go to calendar here. So $356,000, not including today. So now we'll be at about $390,000. So I'm 39% of the way towards my $1 million goal. And although, I'm only like 4 or 5 days into the month and my daily average is really high, it'll come down after today. Today, is a smaller green day. Yesterday was the biggest loss of 36,000 on the month. But biggest winner is 112, and it's 62% accuracy. So that's a little bit lower right now. But the profit loss ratio is 3-1. $3,000 losers, $9,000 winners. This will probably come down a bit more today as well because another big loss. And then, although I had some winners, a lot of them were smaller. So it's something to pay attention to. I do, kind of focus in on my metrics and, when things are going well and when I need to sort of adjust. But overall, I feel like I'm in really good shape on the month, 39% of my goal, for the month of July. And we've still got, 3 full weeks left. Let's see, where is this? So that was June. Here's July. So, we've got, 1, 2, 3, 3 plus 1, 2, 3 weeks left. So we've got a lot of time. And right now, this is over 300,000 on the week. That's a great week. I think one of my best weeks ever. Let's see. 2021 was when we had GameStop. So going back to 2021 February. It was actually January was the big move on GameStop. No, oh my goodness, 900,000 in 1 week. Wow. Okay, well, that's going to be hard to top, but it's not impossible. And, as long as I keep stepping up to the plate, one of these days, I might end up having a $400,000 trade. It could happen. So, as long as I'm managing risk. And now one thing that I'll say, I just closed TraderView, but on some of those big days from 2020 and 2021, I actually recall going red before recovering to green. And the act of going red sort of desensitized me to loss sort of early in the day. So I was no longer trading with really fear of loss. I'd already taken a pretty big loss and then I recovered it. And now I was just so aggressive because I just wasn't feeling scared of loss. I'd already, experienced it and recovered. So then it was just like full throttle. So sometimes taking a little loss at the beginning of, the day can turn into maybe a good thing in an interesting way, but not always. I mean, it can also give you revenge trading kind of impulses and it can spiral. So it depends on who you are and how you sort of control those impulses. But in a hot market, I think it can actually be beneficial just to get that first loss out of the way and move on. So tomorrow morning, what are we going to have in store for us? Well, we've got 264 million shares of volume on CLDI, 135 million shares on SUGP. These are cheaper stocks. PROK's got 129 million shares. EVOK's got 64 million. We have a lot of volume in the market. There's no question about that. So multiple stocks up over 100%. This is all really good to see. And so, my plan is just to keep focusing on trading what's right in front of me and accepting that, 65, 70% accuracy, 65, 75%, depending on kind of the day, is going to be typical. So, if I start the day going red, I've got to be a little more careful. But if I start the day in the green and things are just connecting, that's the day to be aggressive and to really size up. So for those of you guys who have been tuning into these recaps, you know that our 4th of July sale ended yesterday. So those of you who didn't join for whatever reason, maybe it wasn't the right time or the software is too expensive or the classes are too expensive, what I will give you guys is the option and the opportunity to do a 2-week trial for $20. So it's a 2-week trial for $20. And during that trial, you get to use the same software that I'm using every single day, the scanners, the charts, the news feed. You'll have access to my chat room, including my live broadcast, which I run every morning from about 7 a.m. to 9:30, 10 a.m., depending on the day. And you'll get a selection of classes from my full-length curriculum. You'll just get a selection of classes during your 2-week trial, but it's enough to give you a sense of my strategy, what to avoid, how to manage your risk, and it gives you a taste of what it's like to be a member, a full-fledged member. So I hope you guys, at the least, if you have the time, check out the 2-week trial, because I think you're going to be really impressed. And yeah, so I'll leave it at that. And reminder, as always, easy come, easy go. Trading is risky. My results aren't typical, so please manage your risk by practicing in a simulator before putting real money on the line. All right, with that, I'll see you guys back at it first thing tomorrow morning.